for a little bit of context, I just talked yesterday with a guy named Sam Harris.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Sam, but Sam, and because I was preparing for a conversation with you, I talked to him about empathy versus reason, and he lands heavily on reason.
Yeah.
Empathy is somewhere between useless and erroneous and leads you astray and is not effective. That reason is the only way forward.
Well, let's draw some fine lines there. And the two fine lines I would draw is, first, what is your definition of empathy? And then secondly, how do people actually make up their minds? And I'm going to flip it. I'm going to go with how people make up their minds. You make up your mind based on what you care about. Period. That makes reason emotion based.
Yeah.
What do you care about? You start with what you care about. You see some guy swimming out off the coast of the ocean, and you see a shark coming up behind him. Who are you cheering for? If it's Adolf Hitler out there, you're cheering for the shark. You might actually feel bad for the shark because it's gonna taste bad. Who do you care about?
You mean the human will taste bad?
Yeah, you know, if he eats Adolf Hitler, you know, it's gonna leave a bad taste in your mouth, even if you're a shark. So you're making up your mind on every circumstance based on what you care about.
Yeah.
So then what does that do to reason? Your reason is based on what you care about from the beginning. Now then, empathy, if you define it as sympathy, which it was never meant to be sympathy, ever. You know, etymology, I think is the word. I keep getting etymology and entomology mixed up. Etymology being, the you know, where words came from, the origin, entomology being bugs.
Got it.
Right? So I like etymology. Where did something come from? Also like entomology. Anyway, etymology. My understanding from my research, the original definition of empathy was an interpretation of a German word where people were trying to figure out what the artist was trying to convey. It was about assessing art. And so it was always about understanding where somebody was coming from, but not sharing necessarily that same thing. So then when I was with the FBI and I first started collaborating with Harvard, Bob Mnookin wrote a book, Beyond Winning. Second chapter is the tension between empathy and assertiveness. Still the best chapter on empathy I've ever read anywhere. And Bob writes in his book, Bob was the head of the program on negotiation. He's also agreed to be interviewed for a documentary that's about me and my company that hasn't been released yet, but it should be released sometime this year.
What's the name of the documentary?
Tactical Empathy.
Good name.
So Bob's definition of empathy said not agreeing or even liking the other side. Don't even got to like them. Don't got to agree with them. Just straight understanding where they're coming from and articulating it, which requires no agreement whatsoever. That becomes a very powerful tool, like ridiculously powerful. And if sympathy or compassion or agreement are not included, you can be empathic with anybody. I was thinking about this when I was getting ready to sit down and talk to you, because you use the word empathy a lot. Putin. I can be empathic with Putin. Easy. It's easy. I don't agree with where he's coming from. I don't agree with his methodology. Early on the Ukraine-Russian war, I saw an article that was very dismissive of Russia that said, Russia's basically Europe's gas station. And I thought, all right, so if you're in charge and the way you feed your people is via an industry that the entire world is trying to quit, the whole world is trying to get out of fossil fuels. If that's how you feed your people, if you don't come up with an answer to that, the people that you've taken a responsibility for are going to die alone in the cold and the dark. They're going to freeze and they're going to die. All right, so that doesn't mean that I agree with where he's coming from or any of his means. But how does this guy see things in his distorted world? You're never going to get through to somebody like that in a conversation unless you can demonstrate to them you understand where they're coming from, whether or not you agree. Early 90s, last century. I'm a last century guy. I'm an old dude. Refer to myself as a last century guy. also a deeply flawed human.
Yeah.
So, terrorist case, New York City, civilian court. Terrorism does not have to be tried in military tribunals. That's a very bad idea. It was always bad. The FBI was always against it. I'm getting ready. We have Muslims testifying in open court against a legitimate Muslim cleric. The guy that was on trial had the credentials as a legitimate Muslim cleric. The people that were testifying against him didn't think he should be advocating murder of innocent people. We'd sit down with them, Arab Muslims, Egyptians, mostly. And I would say to them, you believe that there's been a succession of American governments for the last 200 years that are anti-Islamic. And they'd shake their head and go, yeah. And that'd be the start of the conversation. That's empathy. You believe this to be the case. I never said I agreed. I never said I disagreed. But I showed them that I wasn't afraid of their beliefs. I was so unafraid of them that I was willing to just state them and not disagree or contradict, because I would say that and then I'd shut up and let them react. And I never had to say, here's why you're wrong. I never gave my point of view. Every single one of them that testified. That's empathy, not agreeing with where the other side is coming from. Now, I'm not sure how Sam would define it, but common vernacular is its sympathy and its compassion. And that's when it becomes useless.
And there's a gray area, maybe you can comment on it, is sometimes a drop of compassion helps make that empathy more effective in the conversation. So you just saying you believe X doesn't quite form a strong of a bond with the other person.
You're imagining it doesn't.
Maybe you're right. Yes, I'm imagining it doesn't. I'm imagining you need to show that you're on the same side. That you need to signal a little bit about your actual beliefs, at least in that moment, even if that signaling is not as deep as it sounds. But at first, basically patting the person on the back and saying, we're on the same side, brother.
That's what most people, when they're really learning the concept, that's the basic human reaction.
Yeah.
And in application, especially in highly adversarial situations, like I need a regular guy, Muslim, but how's that guy going to say, buy it if I dude, I'm on your side. I've been there. I feel you. No. People get conned by that so much. Like if we're on opposite sides of the table and I try to act like I'm not on the opposite side of the table, that makes me disingenuous. So I would rather be honest. My currency is integrity. And at some point in time, if you go like, you know where I'm coming from? My answer is going to be like, look, I can agree on maybe where we're going. But if we're talking about, am I on your side now? As a human being, I want to see you survive and thrive, not at my expense. I think the world is full of opportunity. I'm optimistic. I got more than enough reason for saying that. There's enough for both of us. So I got no problem with you getting yours. Just don't take it out of my hide. And I'm going to be honest about it, about both of those things. I'm not interested in you taking it out of my hide. I think there's plenty here for both of us. Now, I don't need to be on your side, except in a human sense. Do I have to side with you over the war? No. Or how we're distributing the stock, or how much I get paid, or how much you make off this car. I think my experience as a layman, is that empathy's not got a downside. That you don't need me to act like I'm on your side for us to make a great deal.